Welcome to Politics and Right. This is Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Hey guys, did you guys listen to You Talk today? I mean, it was great listening to El Señor Steve Jolly. He was talking about immigration. You know, my music is still playing, so it's almost like I'm having an epiphany right now. All right. It goes down and it's going down and it's going down. Anyway, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. Don't forget, guys, always listen to that talk show, You Talk, at 8 a.m. Central Time on KPFT. Steve Jolly has a great show. I was honored to be one of the guests on his show today with a couple of other people. It was really great. I had some fun. We were talking immigration and many other stories, but we have a lot of other stories to talk about today. But beforehand, I just want to bring up the immigration issue, and that is a lot of people are raising a lot of hell about immigration. They are concerned that the borders are overflowing, etc. Unfortunately, folks, it's a very political thing. We could absorb all of those that are heading over the border right now. We have so many jobs available right now. These guys would not only be great for our economy, they would be great for ensuring that we have the productivity that will ensure prices don't have to be as high as they are. Immigration is a good thing, and they are making it political. Let me tell you, America doesn't have the birth rate that's sufficient to pay you Social Security. America doesn't have the birth rate sufficient to make sure our farming goods are taken care of. America doesn't have the birth rate for any of that. We need immigration. Anything else that you hear about immigration, about any negativity that you hear about immigration, when you hear about the coyotes, when you hear about the illegal drugs and all of that, we don't want any of that. We don't. But the reality is, people, we need people. We need a lot of people. Right now in America, I think there's like a $10 million buffer with jobs that we could fill right now. And think about that. If you have 10 million more people in your workforce, it's actually a multiplicative effect, because for everybody that comes over here that needs a job and gets a job, they also need an apartment, a washer, a dryer, a car, and all these other things. All these things are great for our country. Immigration is essential. Immigration is a net positive. Immigration would make us the envy. A strong immigration policy would make us the envy of the world. Unfortunately, we have allowed many to demagogue this situation. And by the way, I just want to let you guys know the show today isn't about immigration. I have a full show for you, but after getting on the phone with El Señor Steve Jolly, he really touched, the commentary on that program really touched me. And I wanted to talk about it. So it seems that Ricardo is ready to talk. So let's go ahead and bring Ricardo into the fold. How you doing, Ricardo?
All right. How you doing?
I am doing fine. Talk to me, sir.
Yeah, I got a point about immigration.
Yes, sir.
The only Americans in the United States are American Indians.
That is true.
The country is run in immigration.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes.
In the Senate, they're all immigrants. I don't know why they have such a big fuss about immigration.
Well, let me tell you, it's because it's a scary thing. Okay. In other words, America, when the pilgrims, and by the way, a lot of people just think of America as the pilgrims came and everything was nice, and no, that's not how it happened. Before the pilgrims, there was Jamestown, and I mean, there are a lot of people coming to America, taking land, all that kind of stuff occurred for a long time. And you're absolutely right. The originals right now in our time space is in fact the indigenous people, the native people here, and everybody else are immigrants. But even the native people at some point in time apparently were immigrants over that land barrier that was there during the Ice Age. So, there's a lot to talk about there. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I mean, they all complain about immigration. We got too many people in the front. in the border. And the way I look at it is, like you said earlier, we got plenty of jobs, and jobs that American people don't want.
Right. But you know what's interesting, Ricardo? It's not only jobs Americans don't want. Even if they want it, right? Here's the deal, Ricardo. If we bring a lot of people over, right? Guess what that does? It means we need more washers, dryers, apartments, cars, clothes. There is so much to really zoom our economy up with these people that are coming in, who most of them have a strong work ethic. And you say, Ricardo?
Yeah. I mean, I know people that are engineers, for example, in Venezuela, and they're working in fast food joints.
Yes.
Because, just to survive.
Yes.
And people complaining that, immigration, we're letting too many people in and all this. And like you said earlier, it boosts the economy.
Yeah, and that is and the thing about it though, Ricardo, is we have to have more people like you and others telling the story. What I started to explain to folks is the math is not enough. La aritmética is not sufficient, right? We have to talk about. We have to talk about. Nobody's. I mean, when the Europeans came to to America, they came to conquer. These people that are coming over the border just want a job. They just want to contribute to society.
Job and a right life. I mean,
Exactly.
they're all coming from wannabe communist countries, or not communist, but they act like they're communist.
Right. Well, that's a whole other discussion on
That's
that.
a whole other issue.
Yeah, that's a
but,
whole other issue.
They're running from something.
Right.
They're running from something that is not good for them, and they're coming to supposedly the land of the free.
Yes, and it's interesting because when I was talking to Steve Jolly this morning at 8 o'clock, and don't forget, listen to Steve Jolly at 8 o'clock on U Talk. Great show. But
believe me, 90% of the day I'm on KPSD.
You're a good man. You're a good man, Ricardo. You're a good man. But yeah, so
and I love your show, and I was stationed in Panama for 3 years.
Oh, really?
Of my life, and yeah.
Which one, Atlantic side or Pacific side? Gatun?
Both sides.
Okay, both sides. Okay, great.
Yeah, I was in Cancun, but I used to go to Kobe all the time.
Yes.
Train people.
Right.
And stuff, and the ranges.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched from a long distance because I already got out. But when we supposedly lost the lease, as they call it.
Right, the 99-year lease, right? The
Really
99 learned to perpetuity lease.
Look what happened. The United States had to step in and stop the Chinese from buying all the properties because they wanted fishing fleets.
Yes. And well,
you know
who owns a port, right? China owns one of the ports.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All the fish that we catch, these on that side of the world,
yes,
are going to China.
Yes. Yes. So I mean, there's a lot that need. I mean, if we really took interest into having good immigration policy, having these people from all over the Americas come and form part of that diaspora right here in America, just think about the influence without a military we have throughout these areas.
Yep.
But anyhow, anything else you want to add, Ricardo?
No, you got it together. I'll keep listening to the rest of the show.
Thank you, my brother. You have a wonderful rest of your day, sir.
You too, buddy.
All right, folks. When I started the show today, first of all, I want to go ahead and give Tori Mercer, thank you so kindly for running the boards and the phone for me. Anything you want to add to the discussion, sir?
Well, what he reminded me of is the concept of active underdevelopment. I mean, that's a history of colonialism. There was no added value in any of the products coming from
the South,
any of the colonialized countries from Europe or, America's colonies. And so that's where, it was reinforced by law, underdevelopment. And, the neocons are doing it, and that's why people are coming up here.
I need to expand on that. And again, I said we have another subject, but this is an important subject as well. When you talk about underdevelopment and when you talk about exporting from all these other countries, it is important for people to understand. America gets its bananas. America gets a lot of its vegetables with remember what's the name of the company?
United Fruit.
United Fruit, and they get their bauxite and all these other goods that they get as raw materials from these places. They bring it to the United States and other places, and they add value to it. And people who add value to raw material actually have richer economies because you're not just depleting your natural resources or selling natural resources raw. You're putting intellect and all of that into a product. Your economy thrives. That's why America has thrived. That's why countries like even China is thriving right now because you're adding value. Go ahead, Tori.
Well, when I speak of active underdevelopment, this is a 500-year policy of Spain and France and England, and then later on the U.S. In the islands, for instance, in the Caribbean, it was illegal for the slave plantation owners to go fishing to feed their slaves. They had to import dried salted cod from the North Atlantic because imperialism and colonialism is all about supporting the mother country. Same thing in New Spain, in Mexico. Mm-hmm. They could have cattle ranches, but they couldn't process the leather. The leather had to be all sent back to Spain to turn into saddles and boots and hats and chaps. It was illegal in Spanish Mexico to make a saddle or boots, because that's added value. So it's all about just extracting raw materials and then taking the saddles made in Spain, sending them back to the cattle ranches in Mexico
at an increased cost,
to an increased cost,
Well, look, I'm glad that you explained that because I knew about the added value. I didn't know the specificity as you mentioned it there. And
active underdevelopment.
There you go. And folks, that is why we have programs like this. Bruce Pollard is in the house, or rather not in the house. Bruce Pollard is on the chat listening to Politics Done Right as well. Anyhow, folks, so again, I just wanted to kind of cement that into people's mindset right now. Immigration is a good thing, and it's an increase in economic activity. And it isn't something to be feared. People use a lot of nativist rhetoric. People use a lot of racial rhetoric whenever they're talking about these mostly brown people coming from across the border. Look, there is absolutely nothing to worry about because this, I don't like to use melting pot, I like to use salsa. This salsa here needs all of us. And you know what? When you have a salsa that has all that good stuff in it, there's no better flavor. So, anyhow, folks, give us a call, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Please don't wait till the end to call because I so love hearing your voice more so than me just talking a narrative. Yes, I always prepare for you guys, but I much prefer hearing what you want to talk about, hearing what you have to say, because that is what makes it worth it. The title of the show today is called The Answer to These Questions Can Make Us Who We Want to Be. We cannot solve our problems without answering a few profound questions. Understand the why leads us to solutions that we create. It seems like we have Ronnie on the line. Come on in, Ronnie.
Oh, yes. Hi, how you doing?
I am doing fine, sir.
On your immigration issues.
Yes, sir.
People that I've talked to about the immigration, it's not that the people want to come over here for a better life and all that. And we all understand that. It's just the way it's being done. Mm-hmm. Just the influx of them. There's just too many of them at one time, and it cannot be handled. And there's so much other than just people coming over here for a better life. That is my big issue is, you don't know what's coming over here, and we all know that.
Let me address that.
Sure.
You are absolutely right that we don't know specifically what's coming over here when you have a whole bunch of people coming over at the same time. And also what happens, Ronnie, is, yes, you're going to get some bad eggs in there. But, we also have a hell of a lot of bad eggs here, and we also export a lot of bad eggs overseas. So, I think that all evens out. The reason you have the crazy at the border right now is that we don't have a sensible policy to bring folks in. That's that is one item, and the other item is for the things that you don't see.
Have a sensible policy. It's called legal immigration.
Okay, Barry, hold on a second. I'm going to I'll talk to you afterwards. But the other thing that we don't have, Ronnie, is we have policies in these other countries that most Americans don't know about. That had they known that, let's give an example with Guatemala. Guatemala had land policies that they were having to sustain the farmers, etc., so that they could be self-sustaining there. And we over here in America, we called it socialism, and we couldn't let that type of policies go into effect, and therefore those people that would have been self-sustaining with the land reform that they were going to have, that had an effect on some of our multinational food companies, left people without sustenance. And what people without sustenance do, they try to take care of their families. So it's not complicated. There is a reason for why this is occurring, and we are not innocent in the reasons this is occurring. Is what I'm saying, Ronnie. And again,
yeah, well, I understand all that, but like I said, it's just we don't have a grip on the immigration system, and that our current administration don't care.
I don't think it is that they don't care. I think it is that they don't have a solution, Ronnie. And even the solution that Biden showed up with yesterday isn't really a solution, as I kind of explained on the U-Talk show at 8 a.m. in the mornings. So, but anyhow, Ronnie, keep listening, because I think you're going to hear a lot. So keep listening to the show. Thank you for calling in. Okay, brother?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a great one. All right, let's go to Barry. Barry, come on in, brother. Barry, you're on.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Barry, you're on, brother.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. We do have a sensible immigration policy. It's called legal immigration.
Okay.
And why should the Asians and Africans who stand in line for years and pay thousands of dollars to get here the right way and take a back seat to people swarming across the border on an invasion of a third world country that cannot benefit America? I think that this idea of taxes needs to be ran by a group called FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform. They read a $50 billion deficit. The bleeding heart liberals read a $50 billion surplus. So somebody's lying somewhere.
Wow. Where do you get your information,
and
Barry?
I want to go to my favor. I want to go to my backup team here.
Okay.
Starting with Mr. Frederick Nietzsche, Genealogy of Morals, Book 3. Where he said that, but no greater or more calamitous misunderstanding is possible than for the happy, well-constituted, powerful in soul and body to begin to doubt their right to happiness in this fashion, i.e. America. Away with this inverted world, away with this shameful emasculation of feeling, that the sick should not make the healthy sick. And this is what such an emasculation would involve, should surely be our supreme concern on earth.
Okay.
The unwashed, uncivilized cannot civilize the West. I mean, the West cannot civilize the unwashed third world. But the unwashed, uncivilized third world can decivilize the West.
Wow. Okay, let me stop you right there.
You're bringing in a race car about these poor little brown people. Well, if they're brown, that's their problem.
Okay, let me tell you, Barry. America, right? Okay, Barry. Let me just say, okay. I don't know where you're from. I don't know what your upbringing
doesn't
is.
matter where I'm from. Reason doesn't have a home.
Let me just say that you are entirely and completely wrong. And not only are you
Frederick Nietzsche?
I'm saying what you just said. I don't care where that came from. Okay, let me tell you this. Guess what? Let me tell you something, brother.
Okay.
There's a lot of literature out there that is bunk. And I'm talking from learned people out there. I mean, let's look at what they thought about the principles of species and all of that.
Let's look at what they thought about illegal immigration first.
I don't know. I don't need to.
There's a legal way to get to America.
Brother, let me tell you this, okay? What was the legal way for the Pilgrims to get here? What was the legal way for Jonestown to come?
2023.
No, I don't care if it's now, but the same thing. I mean, they could have said, somebody could have told them that then, sir. So let's be frank here, all right?
Okay, so the border stays open forever now?
Again, you are using maximal, primordial, childish thinking, sir. Listen to what I'm saying.
I'm using the thinking that the civilized world cannot
I tell you what,
be
Barry, I'm going to go to
by
B right now. Let me just tell you this. No, don't hang him up yet. Don't hang him up yet. Let me just say this, Barry. Barry, here's what I'm going to tell you. You stay listening to the show. You will learn something. Have a wonderful day. I wasn't going to talk immigration, but it seems like people want to talk it, and you guys own this show. Thank you so kindly, Brother Barry. You keep listening, and you can call back later. Thank you, brother. All right, B, come on in. B, you're on. Line 4, is he not there anymore? Or the person named B? I'm going to give you till 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go to Shannon. All right, Shannon, come on in. Shannon, you're on. Turn your radio down, please, my dear friend. Shannon.
All right, B, come on in.
Okay, I see she's probably on hold there. Shannon, come on in if you have something to say, or we'll have to. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please turn your radio down, my dear lady.
Oh, I did. Sorry, I'm driving.
Yes.
Hello. Okay. Yeah. I'm not really sure what he was saying. He was talking so quickly, but I think some people have it's immigration, of course. That's what everybody's talking about. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why the U.S. doesn't do kind of like a point system like they do in other countries, like in Australia and New Zealand. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to go live in Australia, mm-hmm. I would have to satisfy. It's like 110 points,
right?
And they give you points based on do you know how it works? You know, if you speak English,
right, you have X amount of
wealth. You get
wealth.
like 10 points. If your spouse speaks English, this type of thing. I don't understand why we don't. You know, if you've worked in a technical job for 10 years or 5 years, or mm-hmm. You get different amount of points, and I don't understand why we don't do something like that. And then, but also have a system where asylum people who are actually in desperate need. Because I heard Biden talk about this app that they're putting out, and it's like it's never enough. Everybody's pushing, and there's in her argument, she's saying, okay, well that's not enough because there's people that speak these rare dialects that can't even speak Spanish, and so they can't use the app. And it's like, at some point you have to say, there has to be a little bit of value that they will bring to the country in a way. I mean, everybody does bring value if they're going to work, but if you can't even speak Spanish or English or anything, I think that's an issue. And like my daughter, when she was in elementary school, she had done early pre-K, and I wanted her to go into the Spanish class, an all Spanish class in first grade. Mm-hmm. So she could learn Spanish. And they were like, no, she can't go into the.
Why? Oops.
I'm like,
yeah.
And I'm like, well, why can't she go in there? Because they have to add more and more Spanish speaking teachers at the public school to accommodate all the kids who can't speak any English.
Right.
They speak zero English.
No.
So.
Go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
I'm just like, these are the kind of issues that makes people say, okay, we need some kind of system where people really want to come to America. They need to have some basic. They either need to be able to speak Spanish or they need to be able to speak English. It would help if they wanted to come, that they could, if they made an effort of learning a little bit of English. Because it does tax the system to bring in more teachers and more resources and put signs in this language, and then train police officers to learn other languages or have bilingual, trilingual. It does put a strain on things, and it doesn't always get paid. It's not always like a balance.
Let me tell you first of all, Shannon, because I don't hear any animosity in your voice or anything like that. You want to have good immigration policies that's benefited the person who is in dire needs, as well as make sure that it's a positive for America. Nobody wants anything to be a negative for America. So I am with you 100%. As far as all the issues you brought up, they're all legitimate issues that we need to handle. As far as the languages are concerned, let's just give an example about the people that are going through hell in Ukraine. You won't hear something that says, well, they only speak Ukrainian, no English or anything of that sort. And I agree with that. I think they should for somebody in Dire Straits should have the ability to come to America as well. If we have people coming from Venezuela who, well, all Venezuelans speak Spanish. They don't have a dialect. What happened is that there are some indigenous people in Guatemala and Mexico and these places that they do have a dialect of your own, Mayan, Aztecan, or what, I don't know the particular name of those dialects. And yes, if they are going to come over here, we have to take into consideration, like you said, how do we get that mitigated, right? So look, the thing about it is nobody's doing what needs to be done to make it a smooth process. You came up with the point you said, why don't we adapt some sort of a point system for regular immigration as they do in Australia and these other countries? I agree. The thing about it is we have to talk about it in the right fashion and not talk about it as Barry has, which in sort of a demeaning. I'm from the third world, Shannon. And, you know, if I didn't have a thick skin and don't worry about what people say, I would think that Brother Barry thinks of me as just a dog. In other words, you know, I am not human, you know, those third world countries. You see what I'm saying? I heard none of that in your voice.
Yeah, well, America is third world in a lot of ways, too.
Come on, Shannon.
We got some third world, you know, like the insurrection that happened.
Oh,
that kind of stuff
tell me about it, girl.
World.
You tell me about that, girl. Come on. You know, but that is so true. Anything else you want to add, Shannon? By the way, I really like what you had to say, because what you had to say adds meat to the kinds of things that we would need to do, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I know that immigration, nobody really wants it to get fixed because then they don't have a talking point.
There you go.
You know, somewhere to scare people. But I do think, like, just having, you know, I mean, when that happened with me, for example, that kind of changed my mind about immigration, because I'm like, okay, my daughter she's not allowed to have the same, she's not allowed to have.
Let me ask you, I want to explore that. And Bob and John, I'm coming to you, but Shannon just brought up something that I want to explore real quickly. Shannon, you wanted your daughter to take a Spanish class, right? And
I wanted her to just be in the immersion.
An immersion class.
Be in the ESL class.
What was the reason they gave you that she couldn't be in that class?
They just said she can't. She has to go into the regular class. We have a certain amount of kids in each class, and she's already assigned to that class.
No, but what I mean is, was it some other reason? No other reason, because that is where you as a parent have to go to the school board and say, absolutely not. We want our people to be immersed in these types of because I think that is great, having your daughter go into an immersion program and be bilingual. It's not only good for your daughter, it's good for the darn country, right?
Yeah.
So
yes,
that is
where I wanted it.
Well, that is that shouldn't change. Let me just say this, Shannon, and then I got to let you go. That shouldn't change your idea on immigration. It should make you want to go to that meeting at the board and say, listen, my daughter, I want you're culturizing your daughter, young lady, and that's what you want. And we need parents that have that wherewithal to want to have their kids into several cultures. Kudos to you, girl.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
You have a wonderful rest of your day, okay?
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, let's go to John, numero uno. John, come on in.
Hey, how are you?
Talk to me, sir.
Hey, I'm just trying to. I've been wondering here for a couple of years, but immigration. If you totally look at immigration, I think the biggest problem we have is what's been happening is that we transferred most of the jobs because we at some point ignored South America,
yes,
and Africa and all other countries. And what's happening is, you know, those little sombreros that used to be made in South America, those little purses, sometimes in Peru.
Yeah.
What I found out is even the small micro businesses were taken by the Chinese.
Yes.
So what's happening is, even when you go to those other countries, you know, if you go to other countries and like a third world countries, even the pots that were made in Africa are now being made in China.
Let me tell you something.
The truth is that, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, sir. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
So what's happening is, what are you going to do when the whole businesses have been absorbed by one country? It's our fault for having, for 10, 15 years, we focused on $4 trillion in Afghanistan, a war that gave us absolutely nothing in return.
Wow.
And Iraq war, they gave us absolutely nothing in return. And instead, we're blaming China. Look, I go back to Africa. You know what they tell me? What has America done for us in the last 20 years? And they're right.
Right.
Because we imposed the IMF on third world countries with these stupid, stringent rules, and China went there, and you know what they did? They say, how much money do you need?
Exactly.
Just give me your airport. Just give me your airport or give me your port, and we're in business. And now we're waking up. We're all fighting each other. We're all looking at each other and blaming each other like, oh, Biden this, or Trump is blaming Make America Great Again. Well, let me ask him, where was America 20 years?
Wow. Let me tell you something.
Where has America been?
John,
yeah.
Your statements are so profound. It's something that I've written about, and I'm so happy to hear somebody just come out and say it. Now, here's the deal. I'm from Panama originally, and you can find China in Panama. You can find, but here's what China has learned. China has learned how to do capitalism better than America. Think about that.
Exactly.
China has learned to do capitalism better than America. And it's not a, let me just say something here. And what they're doing is not a good thing, because you just talk about the airport that's being built in Kenya, in Nairobi, or the thing, the clothes factory. All of that is, in effect, exploitation of those people. But, you know, there are some that's going to make a whole lot of money. Some of the locals are going to make a whole lot of money. And ultimately, their infrastructure is going to be improved for that particular particular area of the country. And everything works fine and everybody's happy. But in the long run, it's the same thing that we've done as Americans all over the world, as we've exploited.
That is being done by the Chinese.
Exactly. So they're just mimicking what we're doing on steroids.
Right. This freeway system, if you go to Africa, somebody says, oh, they're meant to be wild animals.
No.
Let me tell you, if you go over there right now, these freeway systems that they're building in Houston are showing up everywhere in Africa.
I know, but you know, we don't...
And Americans are sitting here thinking, oh, the world is still revolving around us.
Right.
It doesn't. Wake up.
The world...
It's just a matter of time before your U.S. dollar becomes ignored by Russia, Saudi Arabia, and there you go. You are going to be third world in the USA. I'm telling people every day.
Let me tell you, John, you're red. That's all I can say. You're a red man. So keep up the good works. Keep listening, by the way, to the show. I have some more callers that I got to get in.
Thank you.
But I'd like to explore that. Man, you guys changed the subject completely today, but I love it. All right, let's go ahead and go on to Bob. Thank you, John. Bob, come on in.
Hi, thank you for having this conversation. It's very important, and really good information is being said today.
Talk to me, sir. What would you like to add?
Well, and the prior caller, the one who was concerned about her daughter not being able to get into the Spanish class, I think that hit a really strong point, because she seemed very well-intentioned. It did not seem like she was animus to immigrants or anything, but a lot of people, good intentional people, feel the same way. Oh, that immigrant is coming and they're going to take my job, or they're going to take my daughter's spot.
Right.
And I think you pointed out a very good, that the question is not the immigrant, but why does the school not have enough teachers? Why are they not paying the teachers enough and hiring qualified teachers to teach the children that we have? So I think we need to, how you said, immigration is great for America. It's a net positive, and it really is what makes this country the best country in the world. Is that we have allowed immigrants to come. So we need to use that to our advantage. And yes, just like any sort of economic growth, it does have challenges and it does cause problems. But the question is, we're not going to stop driving just because cars cause accidents. We put in rules and regulations, but the main point is that we should be asking, why isn't the school hiring enough teachers? Why isn't the state government and the federal government funding the schools to the amount that they need? And we could be taxing the immigrants. A lot of them work more than 40 hours, and they earn a lot of money by the benefit that they're providing, and they're willing to pay taxes. And we should be looking at solutions like that, in my opinion.
Bob, let me tell you something. I'm sitting down here listening to the callers that are calling in today, and all I can say is I am so damn impressed that we have such smart callers. Now, what I have to tell all the callers that are calling in here is please make your voice be heard. You are doing it right now by saying this on air as an individual American citizen, that other American citizens can hear you and not have to go into a ball and think that peer pressure must keep them being anti whatever anti they are. So you're a blessing in
when you
calling.
think about American citizens.
When I say I mean American people listening.
Here, the people, the immigrants are coming here because American citizens want and need them here.
Right.
There's people who are renting them houses, who are selling them houses.
Thank you.
Builders that are constructing the houses. They're selling their goods, the washer, the dryer, the groceries to them. They're working and they're producing and they're selling stuff as well. I know a lot of people that might be Republican or support Trump and his immigration policy, but they always say, why can't they come here legally? Except for that person who's married to my daughter. He came in here illegally, but he's a good person.
Right.
And he needs the support he has. Or not that
Bob?
person, but my employee, he's the best worker I have. I want him to be fixed. What do you mean? I can't just pay something and have him legalized? And unfortunately, the immigration laws don't work like that.
Bob, I appreciate your call. Bob, I got to go to Anthony, so I do appreciate your call. Keep listening, keep talking. Tell folks about us. Let them know that there's a station here that has sensible discussion in a civil manner. And I want to thank you so kind. Let's go ahead and bring Anthony in. Thank you, Bob. All right, we have on the chat Paul Fleming, Alistair Waters, Lee Grant. Welcome aboard, guys. Lee says, y'all, that guy in Houston who shot a criminal trying to rob the patrons at the taqueria, he was the antitypical good guy with a gun. I know I know somebody was going to tell me that at some point, but he's the exception and not the rule, Lee, but you're right about that. Let's see. Anthony, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I probably came in late. I'm on my lunch break, so I don't know if you guys discussed this already, but most of the world problems, especially like in Africa and South America, the West created those problems by exploiting the people and their resources, by going in and especially in gold and diamonds, basically out of Africa, and their whole continent is pretty much a third world country, and because of being exploited for so many years, making the West rich, it's like the roosters coming home to roost. And also in South America, it was a book written by an American CIA/FBI guy,
John Miller.
The Coyotes.
Yes.
What was the name of that book?
I don't remember the name of the book, but I know what you're talking about.
Right. So he exposed the whole thing, how it was basically wink, wink, American policy to go down there and keep them corrupt and steal the resources.
Right.
So, now these people, instead of trying to really help these people, and so anyway, to fix this, it's going to take us investing money. I think you alluded to it earlier, but a lot of money to fix those countries. And so we may be scared that they're going to take the money and not do the right thing. So somehow or another make it where we have some fair people to go down there and disperse the money where it's best going to help the people and help their economy.
Anthony, you hit the nail on the head. We have to invest in these countries without the defense industrial conflicts. In other words, we don't have a problem sending $40 billion to Iraq. I mean, to Ukraine. And by the way, but where ultimately that money is going to be funding the defense industrial complex. But let's try to fund humanity, which costs a hell of a lot less. Let's just use Guatemala as an example. If we didn't want to have another immigrant from Guatemala, and that's not what I'm saying, but let's say we didn't want to have another immigrant from Guatemala, we just would have to invest a few $1 million into Guatemala, where a lot of these people that are running for several reasons are actually invested in staying there. But we don't do that. That's not how we think about. Even here in the United States, we throw somebody in jail that costs us $60,000 to keep them in jail, as opposed to investing $10,000 in them to create a productive citizens. We just do it wrong because there are a few people who make a lot of money of us doing it wrong.
How much? But do you have any numbers on how much?
Oh, you fell out, Anthony. And Johnny, you're next.
How many millions would you project? And by the way, that'd be the right thing. People don't come to America just because they just want the free stuff and they love America like that. They come into America because they want to live.
Yes.
It's a humane thing to do.
Yes.
And they don't want to live under strict tyranny where, you're going to rape my daughter and kill my son, but we're going to pack up and go someplace better like America.
And by the way, Anthony, and isn't that what many of the Europeans who came to America did? They were running from something in their place and they came here, right? The only difference is they came. Yeah. Yes. And that's what people do all over the world, right?
Right.
But
that's
Anthony,
why so many Africans are going into Europe.
Right.
And the Europeans exploited Europe, robbed them blind.
Right.
Anyway, that's all.
Thank you so kindly for your call, Anthony. You keep listening, and thank you for spending some time with us on your lunch break, okay?
All right, thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Okay, Johnny, come on in, Johnny.
You know how Republicans love Democrats about... Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I just heard a shh right now after I started speaking, so let me start over. Do you know how Republicans love every time Democrats talking about wanting to pass legislation that allocates money for programs for Americans that help actual working-class Americans and other Americans?
They hate it.
They always, they hate it. And they justify trying to get rid of it. Well, they don't justify. They use the tactic of saying, oh, the Democrats, you guys need to show us how you're going to pay for it.
Right.
They never do that with the military expenditures or when it comes to voting for a pay increase for members of Congress.
Right.
So this is what I'd like to see. You know when the Florida governor, DeSantis, paid $615,000 to relocate 50 migrants, the majority of whom were political asylum seekers from Venezuela.
Venezuela, yeah.
He used taxpayer money for that. He misallocated money out of the $5.8 billion American Rescue Plan, which is also COVID relief, right? Mm-hmm. He got the Florida legislature, his Repo Party pals in the Florida legislature, to take $12 million of that money and hand it over to him. So I suggest that what Joe Biden should have done when he showed up in Texas to shake hands with that sorry excuse of a Texas governor in the wheelchair earlier today or yesterday, that as soon as Greg Abbott passed that long tome of requests or demands to Biden, that then Joe Biden takes it with a smile, shaking his hand, oh, thank you. And by the way, Mr. Abbott, I've got something for you. And he points to his aide. His aide walks up to them. The aide pulls out of his breast pocket a big manila envelope and hands it to the Texas governor. And then the Texas governor says, oh, what's this? And then Joe Biden says, oh, that's a bill so you guys can pay for that $12 million you stole out of the COVID relief money.
Johnny, you never disappoint. You know that, Johnny?
Here's another thing.
Never disappoint.
Let's do some simple math that even Republicans can understand. Okay, Republicans listening in, monitoring KPFT, get your little calculators out. Divide $12 million divided by 10,000 Republican trumpeters. What does that come out to? That comes out to $1,200 fines per trumpeter. So, before we send them off to D.C. jail to serve out their time, we have to take $1,200 from their bank accounts or liquid or some other liquid asset that we can turn into money to put into the Treasury and then funnel it back where it belongs. How's about that?
It's interesting. Hey, Johnny, earlier on the on Steve Jolly's show, you mentioned a book by Miller. What's his name? That worked for the
Steve
CIA.
Hunter?
Yeah,
Confessions
what's the name
of an Economic Hitman
by
ex-CIA guy John
Miller.
Perkins.
Yeah.
Perkins.
Perkins. I meant Perkins.
Is it
John
Perkins?
Yeah, it's Perkins. I interviewed, the reason I brought that up, because I was listening to you this morning, I interviewed John Perkins on his new book a couple years ago. That guy, I'm going to play it on my other show. He's a fascinating guy, and he had the entire story. I interviewed him. We got along great in that interview. You got to check it out at politicsdoneright.com. Hey,
you and all the K50 hosts perpetually talk to fascinating, interesting people, relevant people. And I always chide the NPR local station here. I always tell them, hey, you guys need to update your Rolodex.
All
Quit
right.
putting on people like Pete Peterson, who's dead now.
Look, there's another Peterson out of Canada that drives me crazy with the way he talks about conservatism, but that's for another day. But, Johnny, look, I got to go to David, and then I want to at least spend a good 8 minutes or so on what the subject was supposed to be about today. But you guys own the show, so you all can change it at will. Thank you so kindly for
Why not the Republicans think they own us?
All right, brother. You have a great day, okay? Thank you, Johnny.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's go to David. David, how are you doing today, sir?
Good morning, Egberto.
Good morning.
Hey, I was listening to you this morning talking to Steve Hunter.
Uh-huh.
And the issue of sanctions. Another caller talked about sanctions in respect to countries like Cuba and Venezuela.
Right.
Well, there's an interesting insight that we can gain concerning why America institutes sanctions.
Mm-hmm.
We're one of the most powerful economic forces on the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
When we issue sanctions against other countries, it usually results in them, it raises great difficulties for them.
It sure does.
Because parts of the issue of sanctions is stuff like boycotts and embargoes and stuff like that. But here, let me give you a little insight. I remember hearing about this from when Richard Nixon and his assistant, Henry Kissinger. This was shortly, a few years after Salvador Allende was elected as president of Chile.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when Salvador started to nationalize certain industries in the country because corporations like Anaconda Copper and Coca-Cola were really abusing their privilege in that country to access resources. And so Allende said, there's enough of this. And then he nationalized them. And, Salvador, they had somewhat of a socialist position, and Nixon was totally averse to that, man. There was no way we were going to allow this. Well, Nixon he basically said this. Him and Kissinger got together, and he said, we cannot allow this example to stand.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was referring to was the fact that Salvador Allende was elected. He was legally, democratically elected by the people of Chile. Well, in respect to the issue of a legal democratic election, Nixon and Kissinger said that's what his reference to we cannot allow this example to stand was. The next thing they said was, let's make their economy scream.
Right.
And that's why they instituted the sanctions and the inserted systems which would practically destroy the economy in order to cause the people to rise up against Allende, and
they killed them, and then we got Pinochet. Yep.
Yeah, they sent in the CIA to support Pinochet with American arms and advisors and stuff. The next thing you know, they assassinated Allende and staged a military coup
and supported a dictator for Pinochet. But here's the thing, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I want everybody who are listening to me right now to consider getting a book called The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein. And the shock doctrine explains what Milton Friedman and his Chicago boys did to economies all throughout South America and Asia. Because what you get a flavor of is, you know, we think that all of this is by accident. We think that all the people fleeing South America and Central America is all an accident. These are real problems that our economic system created. And there's another thing that you kind of alluded to, David, that I'm asking you that I wanted to get in there, which is important. And welcome aboard, Eric Hayes. I wanted to bring that up, and that is, whereas and actually it came from what one of the guys who called earlier when he talked about the IMF instituting rationing around the world, and and lending them money that they have to pay back in dollars. And the problem is, America can have infinite debt without inflation. That's not an exact statement. I mean, I know infinite debt would give you inflation, but we can, because we have sovereign currency, we can borrow. Our borrowing is not like a credit card borrowing. We create the money, so we can borrow as long as we have the economy to sustain, the money that we print. Unfortunately for South Africa or for Zimbabwe or for Kenya, when they borrow in US dollars, it's not their money, so they have to trade their goods for US dollars to pay back. That is the worst situation any country could find itself in, and that's why, for all practical purposes, I tell folks, I think all these foreign countries should just go ahead and default. Every one of them should default to the IMF. Every single one of them. Go ahead.
Two more things I want to bring up, Egberto, before I go. Number one, Greg Palast was in Venezuela.
Yes, that's my friend,
Yeah, I know. He was in Venezuela when the coup against Hugo Chavez was initiated, and he talked about it. And then this country, the politics in this country really go out of their way to avoid having to admit that they actually institute coups against people. Mm-hmm. But when Aristide was run out of Haiti, that was a coup that was initiated by George Bush, the second Bush. And then there was the coup against Manuel Zelaya in Honduras, which a guy named Lanny Griffith, who was a buddy of Hillary Clinton, they staged a coup, and Obama desperately tried to redefine it to make it appear that it wasn't a coup, so they could keep on providing military assistance to the corrupt government in Guatemala.
David,
so
I tell people all of the time, my listeners on whatever subject, I think I have listeners on just about every subject, and you guys are smart as hell. Anyway, let me go ahead and I get into. Let's see. I think. Tori wants to say something real quickly. Tori?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what David said. He was very correct on all the motivations in Chile about the U.S. corporations getting basically nationalized. But the number one was AT&T. Allende wanted to nationalize the phone system, which was run by AT&T. And AT&T has long history with the CIA. It was AT&T that really was the straw that broke the camel's back. They went to the CIA and Nixon's CIA and requested intervention, and that's pretty much what happened. Made it happen.
All right. Well, look, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that, Terry. Okay, folks, you can go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter for what the subject of the show was about today. Today it turned into an immigration show. It turned into many other kinds of topic show. But I want to just read a portion of what the show is about today. And please, I ask you so kindly to read these newsletters. And because, again, we put a lot into making sure that we come here with a prepared narrative. And I tell you what, I think where we're going is to enlighten us all. But anyway, the title of the show today was, "The Answer to These Questions Can Make Us Who We Want to Be. We cannot solve our problems without answering a few profound questions. Understanding the whys leads us to solutions that can create our utopia." After watching the debacle on Friday, where we made a fool of ourselves throughout the world as they viewed the dysfunction in electing the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Worse was his acceptance speech, where he laid out Republicans' priorities. His speech clearly shows we will accomplish little if their policies are affected. Of course, 6 Republicans could join Democrats to accomplish much, but that is unlikely. Last year I wrote the book, How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. There are times when I turn off all the lights in my studio and meditate. I ask a whole lot of questions within the ethos. I asked the following questions in the introduction, and I want you to think about some answers, and maybe over the period of several other shows, we'll talk about these answers, the answers to these questions. But here are the profound questions. Why do most Americans continue to accept a system that moves so slowly in empowering one group after another? Why do Americans support politicians who refuse to establish a healthcare system that takes care of all its citizens like every major industrialized country in the world? Why do Americans support a criminal justice system unfair to people of color and all the poor, even though their country preaches morality to the rest of the world? Why do Americans continue to tolerate an unequal educational system where public education is proportional to the wealth of the school district where one resides? Why do Americans accept a public college system that leaves most students in debt? Why do Americans give corporations the same rights we give human beings? Why do Americans allow politicians to spend more than the next 9 or so countries combined for a defense we will never need or could ever use? Why do Americans allow politicians to build toll roads, allowing private corporations to tax us for roads that should be built from taxpayer dollars? Why do Americans allow the working person's income to be taxed at a higher rate than investment income? Why do Americans allow deregulation at the expense of their health and clean environment? Why do Americans support an economic system that benefits corporations and business over people? The most important question, of course, is why did America, the country most grew up revering, fall from grace? Why did America elect the likes of Donald Trump? A utopia is an imagined society with perfect qualities for all its citizens. An American utopia is a society where we create policies that give everyone equal access to success and happiness. So, let's create that society. Folks, I have about a minute more to go here before I got to get out of Dodge. So what I want to do, first of all, is thank you all for becoming a part of the family here at KPFT. Please remember to go to kpft.org and just go ahead and say that I want to support a program that supports us all. That's KPFT and what we bring you. Go to kpft.org, hit that donate button, and say, yes, we are going to support a program that really believes in us, because that is who we are here. We're a bunch of volunteers of all stripes that come together to do what's necessary. When it's time for me to cut out of here, Tori, go ahead and start the music, please, when it's my time. But anyhow, it's important for us to stay supported. Go to kpft.org and support us best you can. And to read the newsletter that I diligently prepare Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, that's generally the topic of the show, please go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I think we are coming close to the end. And in that process, I want to say my name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.